Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, Executive Editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with a quick reminder. Go to the ClassicsToday.com merchandise shop where you can get fabulous t-shirts like this one. They come in long sleeves. They come in multiple colors. They have wacky little slogans attached to them. You know you want some. Have a look. Anyway, now with that said, look at what we've got. We've got the William Steinberg Brahms Symphony Cycle, formerly on Command Classics, now reissued on Deutsche Grammophon, which owns the Command catalog. This is with the Pittsburgh Symphony. You get all four symphonies plus the Tragic Overture on 3 discs. Now, this set has been much anticipated, as was the Beethoven cycle, for a couple of reasons. Some of them are musical, some of them, I have to confess, are not. So let's talk about the musical ones first. Steinberg was a wonderful conductor. He really was. He was an absolutely tremendous conductor. He was a pupil of Klemperer and like Furtwängler and those people. And he just really did wonderful, wonderful things in Pittsburgh. No question about that. The other thing is that he was like apparently a really nice guy. People really liked him. They liked to work with him. And but that's not strictly like a musical thing. And the even more not strictly musical thing is the fact that he gets the pity vote because he fully expected to succeed Charles Munch at the Boston Symphony. He was really the guy who was going to take over, and he didn't get the job. Erich Leinsdorf got the job. And the reason Erich Leinsdorf got the job is because RCA Records had Leinsdorf, and they were pushing really, really hard for Leinsdorf to take the job, and Boston Symphony wanted to stay an RCA orchestra, which they had been under Munch, so they chose Leinsdorf. And it was a terrible mark of disrespect, really, to Steinberg, who was vastly more popular, and, with all due respect to Leinsdorf, really a better conductor. And he made a few recordings in Boston for RCA and then for Deutsche Grammophon, but he died only a couple of years later. So, and Boston went, trickling on with Leinsdorf, who bankrupted RCA, making a recording of Lohengrin, and got RCA completely out of the classical music business for a while because it was such a financial catastrophe. So the buzzards came home to roost, and we could all have a nice, healthy wad of schadenfreude about the whole situation. But let's get back to Leinsdorf. Now, Leinsdorf was a splendid Brahms conductor. He really was. And he did the first and fourth symphonies previously. He did the fourth symphony on Everest, the first for Capitol, which became EMI, which became Warner. And all that stuff's been issued, and they're very, very good. But then between 1961 and 65, he did the complete Brahms cycle for Command Classics. And these performances had a lot of respect when they came out, and they deserve it. They're very good for the most part. But I have to say, I have to be honest, there has been an awful lot of Brahms between 1961 and today. A lot of Brahms. A whole lot of Brahms. And so the competition is much tougher. And hearing these again, both sonically and interpretively, well, they haven't held up quite so well in some respects. So let me tell you what those respects are. Well, let's do the good news first, because that's always easy. The second and third symphonies are fabulous. I mean, they're really as good as anything out there. They are wonderful. In the second symphony, Steinberg, first of all, he begins in tempo. So the music is flowing right from the start. Normally, conductors treat the opening as a sort of, misty awakening, which can be very effective. Don't get me wrong. But it's very slow, and then it kind of speeds up, and then finally the allegro kicks in, and then it sort of goes back down to slowness and then fastness. And no, Steinberg is in allegro tempo right from the start, and it's wonderful. Wonderful. The whole performance just flows. It has the most fantastic feeling of inevitability about it. It's really a marvelous interpretation. The finale, too. It really is. You know how some people sort of speed up toward the end and some people don't? Well, Steinberg does a little bit, but where he does it is exactly in the right spot to give the music that jolt of energy without the feeling that it's about to spin out of control, as sometimes can happen. It's just great. And the third is even better. It has exactly the same sense of flow as the second does. No exposition repeats here, by the way, and I don't care. Maybe you do. It doesn't bother me. But it's really an exciting performance. It shows you what happens when you take Brahms's sort of tempo designation seriously. And maintain a good, comfortable speed, and find the right rhythm and balance in each movement. It's just magnificent. The finale is tremendous, aided by an absolutely fantastic bass trombone in the central climax. Boy, does he really make it work. I will also say that Steinberg, for all of his quasi-literalosity or literalism, is actually not. He's not. I mean, he adds the timpani parts after the big climax in the finale, though they're not all that audible, but they're there. And so he's willing to toy with the music as necessary for expressive effect. He's got some Luftpausen and rhythmic inflections that make perfect sense. It's just beautiful Brahms. Now we have the bad news. The First Symphony. The First Symphony is great for the last three movements, but the first movement, oh my goodness, it's rather ponderous. It just is. The opening is heavy. It's heavy and it's dark. And when the allegro gets going, it's basically the same tempo. I mean, he really takes poco sostenuto very seriously, because the allegro and the poco sostenuto are almost the same, which is basically what Brahms wrote, granted, but it would have needed to be a little zippier from the very beginning. After that, he's okay. He really is. And in the Fourth Symphony, it's the opposite problem. The finale is extremely monumental. It's monumental to the point, I would say, in the latter stages, almost of rigidity. And some people may like it, and some people may not like it. There are things about it that I love. Instrumental details and points of rhythm and inflection that are just tremendous. The very opening of the Passacaglia theme is that the chords are so marvelously weighted, and they get darker and heavier as they go up. It's really well done. But when he gets to the end of the whole movement, again, a lot of people speed up. Well, he doesn't speed up, but he actually slows down. And the result is even more monumental. And he hangs on to that last chord. The last chord's very short. It's bum, bum. That's the last chord. But most people, give it a couple extra beats to make it sound more final. Brahms may have been a bit too Brahmsy in there, and so does Steinberg. But whether you're going to want something that sounds that stiff, I don't know. I found it a little bit too much of a good thing, shall we say. So, and the tragic overture is good, but not fantastic. Here's the thing. Sonically, the strings are rather forward. They sound quite good, by the way. But there's still a lot of textural clarity. It's very, very nice. The timpani are quite mushy. They have that sort of, they blend into everything. A lot of orchestras at the time in the 60s sounded that way. That was a preferred timpani sound. The Concertgebouw sounded like that, and the Philadelphia Orchestra sounded like that. They didn't have those hard, poundy timpani that Werner Teresen in Berlin sort of pioneered, that hard, rock-solid bottom timpani sound that both Furtwängler and Karajan liked. And this isn't like that at all. So that softness, that soft edge to the rhythm might be something that doesn't appeal to everybody. And the sonics, aside from that, are somewhat swimmy. Early 60s, they're not bad. It's quite listenable. But it's not demonstration quality by any stretch of the imagination. So fans of Steinberg are going to like this very, very much, because they've been waiting. I mean, I grew up with a couple of these performances too. My mother had the first in this series. I remember it vividly. And it sounds exactly the way it sounded then. It's a question of taste, as we always say. I think for 2 and 3, these are really, really wonderful. But for 1 and 4, I can do without them. So it's batting 500, as they say in baseball terminology. It's 50% win, 50%. I wouldn't call it loss, just not great, just not competitive. And that's the key. I mean, you want to spend $30 on this, you can get for $30 a zillion other Brahms cycles that are good for all four symphonies. And that's just the truth. That's the reality of the situation. So it's your call. That's I think a fair appraisal. I really do. So keep on listening, folks. Enjoy your Brahms, however you get it. It's good seeing this back. I mean, I do have that sympathetic feeling for it, but it's not essential. Not essential. That's the way it goes. Take care.